The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. I think I've probably saved the best to last because we have Tom Conlon today. And Tom doesn't know this, okay? But I'm changing the format of the podcast. As all good marketeers do, we refresh it every now and again. And next year is the start of In the Business Coach's Chair. But Tom is an outstanding entrepreneur, creative, brand guru, guy who lives in New York. Tom, welcome. How are you today?
Hey, Rebecca, I'm really great. Thank you. And yeah, let's roll with it. If you're changing the format, I'm good.
Okay, so North Street Creative is your baby.
Yeah.
Tell me how that began.
Okay. I started North Street 14 years ago. So we're a creative agency. We focus on branding and web design and development. We're about 14 people now. And the way it started, honestly, it was sort of by accident. It was one of those things where my background is in magazines, is in consumer publishing. And I had spent the first part of my career in working in magazines on both sides, digital and print, actually. It was interesting. I got out of college, I taught myself HTML, and I was like, okay, I'm a website person. And that's how I started working in magazines in New York City on the digital side. But this was like 2000. And so magazine websites were very, very thin. And we updated it we updated it like twice a month with content from the magazine. So I was working on that side, and then after a while I actually kind of got bored and started helping my friends on the magazine side, like write articles, and then I switched over to become an editorial person. Long story short, the magazine industry collapsed. My magazine shut down, and I found myself freelancing. And I wasn't really sure what my next move was going to be. I was a freelance writer for a bit. I was writing articles for all sorts of different publications like Wired and Popular Science and Maxim and Men's Journal and things like that. But at the same time, people started asking me, oh, hey, weren't you like a website guy? And didn't you do logos? And so I started doing that for some friends at first. And I realized really quickly, it was like, oh, if I have a 40-hour week minimum, right? Like for me to spend 3 days of that, like researching and pitching stories for magazines that, like, if I hear back, I'm lucky. And if I hear back and I'm lucky, they're going to pay me peanuts. It was like, it was a lot of work for very little pay. And so I realized quickly, I'm like, oh, I can do this other stuff and actually make a living here. And that was 07, 2007 to 2010, I'd say, were like my years where I was just kind of figuring out. I was doing projects by myself as a freelancer, kind of wondering what I was going to do. I worked for AOL for a bit, helped them launch a blog, but really I was kind of on my own. And then in 2010, I just got to this point where I was so busy. It was really great. It was like I was busy with I had a lot of opportunity, more than I could handle myself. But I was also being asked to do things that I wasn't capable of. I mean, I was a serviceable designer and developer. Like I was good, but I wasn't like amazing at either one. I could put up a great website with a great logo, but I started getting asked for things that were like either complex technically or just required complex design solutions. And so that was the moment I started thinking like, oh, maybe I'll pull people in and I'll be a project manager. Maybe I'll code the site, maybe I'll design it, but I'll have some other people do other pieces. And that was really the moment where I was like, oh, okay, like maybe I can think beyond myself. It's not just what I can do technically or design wise. And within like that year, I started having freelancers who were on a more permanent basis, and then those turned into part-time employees, full-time employees, office lease, and all of a sudden it was like, whoa, we turned around and we're like, wow, we're like a company.
So we have a business.
And then I operated like that for a while, where I was like, oh, I guess like it's just this is cool. And then I didn't even really like think about the business for many years after that, where I was like, whoa, like this thing needs to run, profitably. I need to think about where new business comes from. I have to delegate. I can't do everything myself. And so we could talk about that later, but that was like, it was years later that I was like, oh, this isn't, I'm not sure this is a business. This is like me doing my thing with a bunch
Yeah.
of other people, you know?
Yeah, that's so interesting. So many people kind of are accidental business owners and
Yeah.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
I think, and I don't know, you can disagree with me vehemently about this, but I think the fact that you weren't top of your game in terms of designer or tech person meant that you had to bring other people in. And
Hmm.
well done for recognizing that, because so many people wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I mean, it's two parts too, right? It's like, it's what you are capable of, like as a
Yeah,
technician, right? Like I could only code with a certain level of complexity before it was over my head. And
yeah.
designs, like sometimes I just needed something better. But the other half of it is like delegation, right? Like there's other
Mm,
stuff that like you don't necessarily want to do, but you have to do as the business owner. And like some of that stuff you should get off your plate sooner rather than
yeah, you
later
really
to
should.
free you up. Yeah.
Yeah, you really, I found myself today. Here's a confession. Um, I momentarily subscribed to Adobe so I could edit a PDF. And I'm like, what am I doing? This is a complete waste of my time.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
What?
Yes.
Why am I doing it? I stopped myself halfway through, immediately pressed cancel 7-day free subscription. Went, no, go to my designer Lydia, who you
Yeah.
pay to do this kind of stuff, because she will do it in half the time and she will do it
Hmm.
properly. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
And
yeah, again,
I would think about that in your personal life too, right? Like sometimes I'm just like, is this worth my time? Like, could I
yeah,
spend, I don't even know what it is, but it's like a trained professional could do this in an hour and I'm going to spend a
yeah,
weekend doing this.
yeah.
You know?
I'm going to let you into another secret. We've just had a guy come in and clean our oven
Nice. Okay.
because I hate cleaning the oven and I'm not doing it. And everybody thinks it's my job because I'm female. So, like, no, I'm not doing it. So we pay
Right.
somebody to do it, and he does it in half the time and he does a brilliant job. So there you go.
And
Okay.
you're getting stuff done, right? You're getting
Yeah,
more important stuff to you done.
much more important stuff. So the big news is that we spoke a few months back to get this
Mm.
booked in and check we're on the right course. And then I just checked back on your website today, and oh my God, you ran a campaign for Kamala Harris. You
We did.
ran,
We were involved. Yeah, we were involved, and I can give you the whole story, but go ahead.
yeah. How the heck did that come about? From somebody who
Mm.
was an accidental business owner to running even a part of the campaign for Kamala Harris. What
Yeah, it
happened?
was it was wild. So we don't even have like a very big political portfolio.
No.
We've done a couple of like nonprofits that are kind of politically oriented. Um, this was obviously like the biggest political contest and event
Yeah.
in the world, or one of, right? Yeah, it was relationships. I mean, it's relationships that I've developed over the years. And the sort of short version of the story is that like the White House website and the Biden campaign website were hosted, and we're partners with WordPress VIP. WordPress VIP is WordPress's like official
Ah,
um, hosting platform, and we're a partner
right.
of WordPress VIP. And so part of it was a couple of agencies. There was the Harris team, and then there was a team called Vast Design and Development. They're a team that we partner with sometimes, and they sort of ran project management while Team Harris handled most of the design in the UX, and my team actually was responsible for the entire, like, let's build it, deploy it, test it,
Wow.
and launch it. And so it was we handled the entire sort of technical end of things, and partnered with Team Harris and that other agency on kind of project management and UI UX. But it was exciting. It moved really fast. I mean, and that is why we got the project. Let me back up. We have a part of my business, which is interesting. We're actually spinning it off into a second business,
Okay.
probably early next year. But part of my business over the last 14 years has been, it's so different from what we do. Like,
Mm.
we're mostly a branding and design agency, but we have gotten really good at developing a process and processes around really fast deployment of websites for very, very high stakes situations. And so that
Ah.
sounds odd, and it sounds very niche, and it is niche, but basically think of like when two companies merge. and I'll use like, let's just say two airlines merge, uh, and those are public companies, a website has to go up that informs the shareholders about what is going on and tries to convince them to vote either way, right? Like vote for it, vote against it. These things are highly confidential because they involve two companies that aren't merging, and it's not public information. And they have to go very quickly. They have to go like within days sometimes before the market opens. So we've just gotten really good at doing this with a couple of partners. And so when WordPress approached us and Vast approached us and said, originally it was like, hey, can you do this entire website in 2 weeks? We said, no problem. Like we've done that 100 times and we can do it. And I think it was that like confidence that I think that definitely got us the job, because it was like, people were like, what are you going to do an entire website in 2 weeks? And we were like, we've literally done this and we do it all the time. And so like, don't worry about it. We've got it handled. Like there's going to be things, we're going to move fast. We're probably going to break things. And like, your idea of perfect is not going to be what launches. That's okay, because like we have 2 weeks to do this. Well, it turns out Biden left the race. The project we were working on the Biden project. It became the Kamala project. And we just kind of went, and we ended up having about 4 weeks or a little bit more to do it, I think, because they just kept saying like, maybe we'll wait for the DNC and all that. But yeah, insanely, like the most high profile thing we've ever worked on.
That's incredible.
And just like, just really, really cool to work with, like, the team that was working on like the potential, the campaign for the potential president. So it was really great, really fun. And like, now I'm very excited that I have this piece in my portfolio that I can talk about.
It's incredible. It really is. When I saw it, I went, what has Tom been up to?
Right.
Absolutely incredible. So cool. You've just hit on a really interesting spot about business. They get to a point where there's something in their wheelhouse. We call it the secret sauce. So when we're working with business owners, we often stumble across their secret sauce that they're not aware of. You're clearly aware of it, which is great. And you've packaged it up and you have a process for it. But so many business owners get really, really good at doing something that they can create a second profit center from it, which clearly you're about to do. And it makes perfect sense. And often, and here's the wonderful thing, that second profit center ends up being much more profitable than the original business.
And also sellable. I mean, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's like the main business is, I run a very traditional, like we're mostly project based. We're, our evaluation could only be so high, as a creative agency that's like founder led and all of that. But the other brand, which we're calling Circulant, has just a very specific purpose. It's easy to market, right? Because we know exactly who needs it. We know exactly what their problem is. We're in a very, very small pond, so we can charge a premium for like the IP that we've developed and in terms of processes and all of that. And I do think it's more primed to be sort of acquired or something like that by a larger kind of agency than North Street would be. So it's interesting. We'll see, but it's fun for me as an entrepreneur, because I've always been like, it's just fun to have like another brand too. Great, like we can do different things with this one, so I'm excited.
Let's play over here for a while.
But you're right. I mean, it's funny, we actually brought in we had a consultant come in and talk to us about positioning ourselves, because like what is it that the shoemakers family has done,
Cobblers Bands in Scotland. Cobblers Bands.
There you go. And it's funny, we were talking about all sorts of angles for North Street, and like literally in the last 5 minutes I mentioned this thing. I'm like, oh, there's this like thing that we do that's very specific. And like the guy was just like, that's interesting. Let's talk more about that. And so that's kind of how we got there. I think we knew it. We just needed somebody to be like, that is a good idea. Like that is something that has legs. Like you guys should stop just like thinking about it and like do it.
You often need an external just to point it out and reassure you 100%. That it is a good idea. It's not completely insane. And it will work. Yeah, you're quite right. 100%. Definitely. Okay, so that's kind of answered that question about where you're taking it. And I can see how that could grow arms and legs, actually. That's quite interesting. I want to circle back to when the magazine folded all the way back. And
Yep.
the reason I'm asking you this, Tom, is because I'm just writing some kind of self-help book for people being made redundant, being let go, because there's a
Yep.
lot of it about at the moment, and I think
Mhm.
it's only going to get worse.
I agree.
And some people are considering a freelance career and things like that. But when all those years ago you were let go, was it were you scared? Were you angry? What were the emotions that were flying around?
Yeah, I was really angry. I'm not sure if
Mhm,
like angry is the right word, but like
mhm.
I'll tell you, it was just one of those things where I was in my 20s, and I was like, I poured my blood, sweat, and tears into this
Mm,
magazine. You know, like you're a
mhm.
magazine, you're on a deadline. I mean, it's a real deadline. If it doesn't,
Yeah,
not finished, it doesn't go to print, right?
yeah,
And so, and we'd usually be working on probably 3 issues at once. So like
right.
starting one up, we'd be like in the middle of one, and then we'd be sort of like finishing touches on the other. And so there were lots of long nights, long weekends. You'd stay late at night because you're just waiting for something to come back around to you from your coworker. And it was just a brand. I worked at FHM magazine, I should say. So that was a magazine that was
Wow.
a like a men's lifestyle
Yeah.
magazine. And I loved the brand. I loved everybody I worked with. I was the target market. It was 18 to 35. I was in my 20s.
I remember it
I
well. Is it still going?
There might be, the brand might still exist
Uh-huh.
online,
Yeah.
but the magazine I think is long gone.
Right.
Um, and Yeah, I just like I got to do all sorts of amazing stuff, interviewing people I thought were cool or whatever.
Mm,
And then Yeah, and then we got brought into a conference room like right before the holidays in December. And like they just closed it down. It was such a
mm,
shock. It was like such a shock. We were doing really well. Our circulation was really high. But they just couldn't make the model work for some reason. We were sort of like this like our company was British, and so we were sort
yeah.
of like this like outpost. And so I just think they couldn't make it work. Um, but yeah, I was devastated. I was like, wow, I put everything I had into this. I
Mm,
believed in it. I thought it was kind of like part mine. And it was this
yeah.
realization where it was like, oh, it's not mine at all. And like, there's
No.
people that can just make these decisions like, boom, you're gone. Your whole department's gone. You're gone. Your whole company's gone. And I have no control over that. And that was a real big moment for me. I went right after that. I went to apply for other magazine jobs. And I'm like, I don't even know if I like being a magazine writer. I was like,
Right.
I think I like that job so much because of just everything. It was like the content, it was the
Right.
people. I was the target market. I remember I remember applying for a job for a science magazine, and I was like, ugh, don't know if I can do this. Uh, and Yeah, and I did have one of those like I said earlier I worked at AOL for a bit. I helped them launch a blog, and I remember just it was the first job I had in 5 years because I was at a magazine for so long. So it's like different boss, different set of coworkers, different content, different everything, and I was just like, ooh, I don't like this.
Right.
I don't
Right.
like this. And I'm having trouble, I think, like I'm having trouble working for someone else. And I don't mean that in a way like I'm not,
Hmm.
I don't like to be told what to do. It was more like I have no control. Like I could be
Yeah.
fired. And the funny thing was not funny, actually sad, was that like I like to tell the story. I really didn't like AOL. I mean, whatever, I have no problem with the company. I just didn't really like working there. And I remember I went in and I resigned. I was like, I can't do this.
Right.
I'm gonna be a freelancer. I remember my boss was like, hey, please don't leave. Can I pay you your salary, but you'll work 3 days a week instead of five? I said, absolutely. 100%.
Wow.
Like, no
Wow.
worries. And that'll help me like start, that'll help me like freelance more and all that. And then
Yeah.
about 3 months later, the company was restructured and I lost my job, which was, which was funny because then I got severance and all that, where if I'd quit,
You
I would have just
wouldn't
been bye bye.
work.
Yeah, and that was really my last office job. And I was already freelancing at the same time, and sort of right after that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start
Yeah.
my own
It's
thing.
a good if people out there are kind of resonating with your story, and I know there are thousands of people that do go, what am I doing? I don't really fit in. I don't really like it. The control thing is big for many
Mhm,
business owners and entrepreneurs and
mhm.
freelancers, definitely.
Yeah.
if you can get that sweet spot of a part-time salary while you build your freelancing,
Yeah.
perfect. Yeah,
Yep. Absolutely. And a lot of times, you'll see this happen where often the company that is employing them in that part-time capacity becomes like their first client, right? That becomes
absolutely.
like your first sort of anchor client that you can
Yeah.
really depend on. So yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. So your team's buzzing after the excitement of the
Hmm.
Harris
Hmm.
campaign. Did you meet Kamala, by the way?
Oh, no, 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 no,
No,
no.
just wait to, yeah, yeah,
No, I mean, yeah.
yeah,
She was working on some important stuff.
yeah, of course, definitely. What next for the business? I know you're going to do the spin-off, but what next for the
Hmm.
core business?
For the core business, we're really focusing on a couple of things going into 25. We
Mhm.
have been working on process quite a bit, and I know that sounds boring, but
Mhm.
it's really like I don't. There is no reason to reinvent the wheel every
No,
single time you go. And if you, and not that we're doing that, we do have processes down, but there are still things that we struggle with or that clients struggle with, and we want to put a process in place to help them help us.
yeah,
And so working on that is going to be a big part. And then honestly, like account management and client experience is going to be a big one for us because, I'll just sort of cut to the chase here and just say that like if you can get it's a lot easier, warmer, better, more aligned when you are getting business from existing clients
yeah,
than going out and getting net new clients all the time. It's like these people already trust you.
yeah,
They know what you're capable of. They even trust you if you're going to bring it out in an outside person. They oftentimes don't care because they understand that it's you bringing them in and they trust you. And so just really like monitoring and just being more proactive and maybe even tactical about like just client sentiment and just making sure that they feel like they're taken care of and understood and heard. Um, so the hope is there that like our existing projects go more smoothly, and
yeah.
then we're sort of like just we're in constant contact with clients about potential new projects, or we're just there when something comes up on their end. They're like, hey,
This is, we have a model called the economic engine, and this is the last circle of our model, which is relationships. What are you doing with the
mm-hmm,
clients who aren't
yeah,
necessarily buying from you right now, but have bought from you, or you're coming to an
mm-hmm,
end of a project? You've got to love and nurture them and cuddle them and look after them because they are your
yep,
profit, aren't they? They
yep,
really, really
yep.
are. Yeah. Now, here's a question, and I don't know whether you know the answer to this because I don't know whether you've seen it. Have you seen the new Jaguar ad? Right.
I haven't seen the ad, but I've seen the
Okay.
I've seen the logo and the discussion going around.
Yeah, have you? And again, I'm not an expert on brand. I need to ask my brand lady what she thinks. What do you make of it? What do you think's happening there? Because I don't know whether they're being really clever and forward thinking or they've really blown a gasket. And I don't know.
Okay, so I'll say that like I kind of purposefully haven't dove into the let's just say quote unquote controversy around it. Like
Yeah.
I'm not really reading what people are saying about
No,
it. I know
I'm
I know
not
that there's a
interested
lot of
in
like
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So but I've seen the logo. My honest opinion is or just my immediate opinion was
Uh-huh.
it looks like everything else I see on the road. Like
Yeah.
I just don't I wouldn't be so like I wouldn't if that was the Honda, it was if that was a Honda, if Honda wrote their or Kia
Yeah.
or like it just felt
Yeah.
it just feels weirdly generic. But like that said, remember that like brands like they become the brand through like the living experience of the brand, right? Like the
Yes,
the brand becomes the brand. And so
it
I don't
does.
even know. I haven't looked at it in a while, but if you look at the old Jaguar logo, it's like, is it that great? No, it's like I don't know. It's just iconic because it
It's
became
just
iconic, right?
Jaguar leaping forward.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But like look at some of the biggest logos like in culture, and it's like, are they that special or great?
Yeah.
Not all of them, and it's because that they've like the brand has become iconic, and so the
Yeah.
the brand the brand mark has become iconic alongside it. So we'll see. It's interesting. Like I honestly like my where my mind goes is like I'm like I feel so bad for like the design team that like
Yeah, I
unveiled it
know.
and was like woo. And it's just like, oh, I hate that. I hate that. And I gotta say, like,
Oh,
I've been on that side too. Like I
have
remember
you?
seamless.com, which is like Grubhub. It's like, where you can order food online. I remember they redesigned their whole UX, and I was so mad because like all the buttons that like I basically had them like programmed in my head where I just knew how to order
Right,
really fast. And when they moved all the buttons around, I was like, this is the worst. Why would they do this? This is awful. I hate Seamless. And then I realized really quickly, I'm like, oh, this is actually a way better user experience. They like made it
right,
totally good for like tablets and phones. And I'm like, this is great. But
right.
people hate change, and I feel
They
bad for those
do.
designers who like unveil it and they're like, we worked really hard on this. And the world's just like, eh.
Yeah, I kind of I looked at it and I'm like, oh, it's just so different. And yeah,
Mm-hmm,
maybe they're building the brand to grow into it, to
mm-hmm, yeah.
reposition the business to grow into it, in which case it makes great sense. And maybe they're going after a completely different market.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, fantastic. Um, I and these brands, when you rebrand them, you're right, people don't like change and they don't like drastic change, and the change has been really drastic.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and
yeah,
people
yeah.
react to that, but then they're being talked about,
Exactly,
you
exactly.
know?
So, yeah, like when's the last time Jaguar was like the talk of the town? Like,
Exactly.
no, like we're talking about it, like other people are talking about it, like, okay, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. It's interesting. I mean, I remember when they rebranded a few. This is a long time ago now, but they
Uh-huh.
rebranded and they rebranded internally, and it was kind of a disaster. It was confusing, and like people like they've since they rebranded really quickly.
Right.
Um, so that's a potential. We'll see. I hope it doesn't happen. I think that like let's live with the brand. I hope Jaguar
Yeah.
does live
Yeah.
with the brand and like stick by their guns in terms of like whatever their motivations were. I'd hate to
Sure.
see them peel back just because of some
Same.
criticism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Yeah, I agree. I'm keen to see what they do with their showrooms,
Mm,
and whether their
mm.
showrooms reflect that new brand. Because at the moment,
It's a whole it's a whole different aesthetic, right?
yeah,
The
it's
whole
completely
thing. Like,
different.
yep, yep.
And it may well be really cool walking into a showroom once they rebrand it. Who knows? Time will
Yep.
tell. We'll come back in
Yep.
5 years
All right.
and we'll find out whether
I'll pull
it's.
up in my Jaguar.
All right. So I've got a little businessy quote, coaching question. If
Yep.
you had a magic wand, Tom, and there was one problem in your business that you would solve instantly, what with your magic wand, what would it be?
I think it would be a steady, predictable pipeline of
Right.
business. Right? It's very. I know I'm not alone in this because I talk to a
Yeah.
lot of other agency owners, and business owners, but it's very up and down. And
Yeah.
sometimes the swings are like, sometimes the modulation isn't so bad, and it's like, okay, these are rocky seas, but other times it's you know, and it's a lot. And so the challenge of agencies like mine is like, you have to keep a certain amount of full-time staff as your
Yeah.
infrastructure. And so you really have to prepare financially for the dips, and make
You
sure that
do.
like you've got savings and a line of credit to like just because our October we had a really great year, and then October was so slow. I think it
Oh,
was like election jitters.
yeah. Yeah.
Because now we're seeing a lot of people kind of coming out with projects, but um we had to be able to weather that storm where it was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is like a negatively profitable month. It's okay because we've got the cushion,
Yeah.
um but yeah, my magic wand would be like, please make it like just a steady stream of opportunities that come in that I can vet and I can choose the ones that are awesome and I want,
Yeah.
and I can refer out the other ones to people I trust, and that it's just I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, that would be nice. That would be nice for us all. It's good to
Yeah.
know that the business and the projects are coming back because, yeah, we experienced everybody held their breath.
Oh,
For the
totally. It was,
even in the
yeah,
UK, it's like I know America affects the world, but everybody was like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's crazy too, because like I just feel like either way, it would have, either way, the
yeah,
markets would have like
yeah,
taken that sort of exhale, right? It's
yeah,
just,
yeah,
yeah,
totally, totally. It was just they wanted a decision.
Exactly.
They didn't care what
Exactly.
the decision was. They
Just
wanted
tell
a
me what's
decision.
happening. Just
Yeah.
tell me what's happening, and then I will spend my money. Yeah.
Amazing. Brilliant. If your last question, if your business had a personality or a character, either who would it be or how would you describe it?
Oh my God. Oh God. Okay, this is random. I'm gonna go with Mr. Miyagi from the Karate Kid.
Ooh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think Mr. Miyagi was a maybe our clients are Daniel, the Daniel-san, the karate student, and
Yeah.
they've got greatness within them, I think, but they just need to be so it needs to be kind of pulled out of them. They need to be trained with processes and things, and the hope is that at the end, they're standing on our shoulders holding the big trophy.
Ah, I love that. I love that. And that describes beautifully the process of taking a client through that brand experience, that marketing
Right.
experience. It really, really, they do need educating. My friend Lauren tells me all about it. It drives her mad. But anyway, listen, thank you so much. What an honor and a privilege is to
Thank
speak to
you. This
you,
was so
Tom.
fun. Yeah.
Thank you. And best of luck for the new venture.
All right, Rebecca, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass, where we